Hi, I'm Alison from Alison's Astrology, and I'm here to talk to you today about the week from Sunday, the 6th of April till Saturday, the 12th, but running on to the 13th actually, because there's a full moon on the early hours, in the early hours of Sunday morning, and that's really important. So we're going to have a little look at that as well. So just to begin this week, well, I hope you had a good Saturday with busy, friendly Sun-Jupiter conjunction, no, sextile, sorry, at 16 degrees of Aries and Gemini. So you might have found that quite sociable. And even if you weren't socializing much, you were probably pretty busy and energized by it, hopefully. And now, as we go forward, we're coming out of that eclipse shadow that kind of lasted most of last week. And we can start looking forward to the Libra full moon next Sunday as a bit of a watershed, I think, and the first lunation without the kind of hidden eclipse agendas for a couple of months. So that's good to see. And we're also starting to see now how Neptune in Aries is actually playing out in our lives and in the world. And I do think, and I said this in a short video somewhere, that for us Pisces, anyone who like me has got Pisces planets, it's actually making me feel more goal-oriented to have one of my ruling planets sitting there in Aries, actually, that first sign of the zodiac. So I don't know if that's the case for everyone, but I would be interested to know that. So Pisces out there, just drop me a message and let me know how you feel about that. And it is so important to watch how when these big planets kind of cross boundaries and move into new signs, because it feels like this is how things are going to be for the next kind of few years, So with Neptune, we're looking at the next decade, the next 14 years, something like that. And in Aries at the moment, it's feeling like there's a lack of boundaries in the world, actually, a lack of boundaries with no one quite knowing how to put a break on the Mars thing, the Aries thing. So stuff like war all over the place, really, really awful. And to some extent, the toxic masculinity as well that you sometimes get with the kind of reverse side of Mars when it's not performing very well. And it does struggle to perform sometimes in Cancer, and that can be a shadow side. So this won't go unchallenged forever. That is that is the good thing. It will kind of find a bit more of a balance, I think, and some of that balance will come when Saturn joins Neptune in Aries in May and puts a break on stuff. That's sort of Saturn's job, putting a break on things. But I'm jumping ahead a bit here. And the first thing that we have on Monday, and I will get the chart up actually, the first thing that we have on Monday is that Mercury is turning direct. Hooray, says everyone. And here he is. And actually that's Sunday. So let's move on. It's a little bit later in the day, so we can change the hours. Oops. Come on, Mercury, where are you? Oh yeah, it's lunchtime anyway. Yeah, and there we are anyway. Mercury has turned direct and it happens around lunchtime. So that's good news. And I am calling this video Turning Points because both Mercury and Venus turned direct this week. So that's great, actually. And it means that we've finished kind of thinking about things and now we can get on with things. Even though we might start off quite slowly because both Mercury and Venus are still in Pisces, which thinks about things, doesn't move very quickly always. So the fact that Mercury is turning direct in Pisces at 26 degrees, and if you have got planets or angles there, pay special attention. This will kind of impact your chart. Is not great for Mercury because he doesn't express himself very easily in Pisces, especially not verbally. It's more about the expressive dance forms, poetry, that kind of thing. But there's a lot of thinking going on. I think there's a lot of understanding too with Mercury and Pisces about how things fit together, a sort of sense of things being connected, if you like. So that's interesting. Even though people with Mercury and Pisces might find it difficult to actually express that. So at least the communication planet is now headed in the right direction, on the way out of confusion and uncertainty, and it did miss the conjunction with Saturn. So that's a big positive thing, because Saturn was at 25, didn't quite make it back that far. But Saturn is there to kind of put some constraints on things and give us a bit of a reality check as we get going again. So a sluggish start, but things should pick up. Our plans and stuff come much more kind of active once Mercury moves back into Aries on April the 16th. But anyway, that's fine. It's on the right road now, going forwards. So Venus is also conjunct Saturn as Mercury turns direct, and that does suggest that relationships could also be facing a bit of a reality check there, and we're just looking at where we are with those. There's been quite a lot of relationship stuff as Venus has been retrograde. But I think, again, this is kind of the last gasp of those issues for the time being, as Venus is about to turn direct, and you're going to take what you've kind of assimilated, what you've decided, and now put that into practice. And there'll be, to some extent, a kind of new balance, a new place for your relationships, I think. Values, finances, excuse me, all the things that you really want. That's what Venus is, what you desire. And these may have shifted, you may have reflected, and now you're taking that forward as she starts to turn direct. And in Pisces, of course, it's always about the things that you really dream about. And Venus will rule the full moon next weekend. And this full moon suggests a turning point of some kind in one of these areas as you prepare to move forward. So I'm just going to move this chart forward a little bit, actually, so you can see, because the week's fairly quiet in terms of astrology. So we get Mercury turning direct, and then the week kind of continues. But the sun, as you see there, is coming closer and closer to Chiron and is making this conjunction next Saturday. Now, we all know that Chiron can be very difficult, and where it is in our charts can often suggest something that we're not comfortable with in ourselves, that we feel is a little bit inadequate, something of a wound. And it's something that we have to deal with because it's what makes us human, you know. None of us are perfect, and we've all got Chiron in our charts. So it's important to remember that when you look at other people who you think are wonderful and all that kind of thing. No, everyone's got the Chiron there somewhere. So yeah, so Chiron's again passing across that 22 degrees Aries, and the sun is now with it, so highlighting it, making it visible. So the sun makes things clear and bright as day, so the wound is there for everyone to see. And if you've got planets or angles at 22 Aries, that could feel a bit exposed, if you like. But it's the second pass now of that Chiron, and so the story's moving on. The first time was last July 2024. So whatever happened then, this is probably another chapter in that same story. And perhaps things are starting to come together a little bit in that area. You're beginning to get the hang of it, whatever it is. And potentially it might be bringing a little bit of healing with it, especially as the full moon is coming, you know, pretty much at the same moment, just the next day, and Venus is turning direct as well. And Venus, of course, is ruling that full moon in Libra. So a little bit of a watershed with this full moon. And Chiron, by the way, isn't leaving that 22, 23 degrees of Aries just yet. There is another pass to be made at the end of the year, finally leaving that area in January 2026. So there is more to come. But don't forget, there is always purpose to it all, meaning to be found in it, however hard it is. And perhaps as each time it passes, the sense and meaning of it becomes just a little bit clearer, and also the sense of how you can move forward with it. So the early hours of Sunday morning, and the sun and moon have made their pass over Chiron, the moon in opposition, and the full moon perfects there at 13 degrees 20 of Libra. And I just point this out. Yeah, let's just move it on a day. And that's, oh, I I've gone too far there. So it's early in the morning anyway. I won't move the chart back, but you can see that that was the full moon at 20 degrees of Libra with Chiron right next to it, and Mars is actually square to it as well. And Venus now has turned direct as well at 24 degrees with Saturn. But they're both trining Mars, which is positive there. You know, that's not a bad thing. There's some understanding. And the moon, of course, in Libra is ruling that Mars, which is in Cancer still, the moon sign. So everything's connected as always. And so the moon at 23 degrees. So if you've got planets or angles at 23 degrees of the cardinal signs, Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, then this is going to be impacting you especially. Give it a couple of degrees either side as an orb. And I think there could be a sense of release with this, the sense of a completion of a phase, if you like, connected perhaps with that Chiron. A full moon is always a conclusion and a release. It's the culmination of the lunar cycle. And so here we've got the huge sense with Venus turning direct at the same time of something trying to move on. It's still painful, but it's shifted a little bit. And I think with Libra direct in Pisces, where she is exalted, then whatever it is, we're feeling just that bit stronger and more able to cope with whatever it is we're dealing with. And that might be concerned with family. It might be concerned with tribe or something we care deeply about, because Mars square, it's still squaring that Mars in Cancer. So yeah, so I think there's a shift here that is coming perhaps after the eclipse, and Venus is still close to Saturn, of course. So things are not necessarily easy, and there is a material reality to deal with. That's what Saturn's always telling us, and putting in some boundaries, but also putting in structures. You know, Saturn's useful. It puts in structures, and sometimes we need boundaries and structures around the things we're hoping for now. Yeah, so I think wiser is what we are actually as Venus turns direct and with this full moon. But also because Venus is strong and exalted, we're not giving up on anything. We're not giving up on life. We're not giving up on hope. And there's a sense that we're going to work with whatever it is, and we're going to deal with it, and we're going to move forward. And I think that's the story for this week. So thanks for joining me. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Let me just, oh, I didn't actually even share the screen there, did I? I'm so sorry. I was so busy kind of showing you the chart and I didn't share the screen, and I don't have time to re-record this. So you're probably going to think I'm such a twit. Never mind. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed the listen. Okay. And thanks for everything. And I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.